Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for December 31st, 2013. It's the end of 2013. Last time I'll be saying that. It's currently 9:30 a.m. and it is rather chilly out there with temperatures in the mid to upper teens over the northern interior and lower to mid 20s over the New York City metropolitan area, mid to upper 20s over the Philadelphia metropolitan area. It is going to be cold today with temperatures basically ranging in the mid to upper 20s over the interior and lower to mid 30s along the coast. If you're going to be outside for New Year's Eve, bring a heavy jacket. You're going to need it, especially with the winds from the northwest around 5 to 15 miles per hour. Now, we have a storm brewing, and it's a very interesting storm, and one that I really don't think you should let your guard down, especially as I'm looking at some of the new model guidance coming in from the NAM. There's a lot of uncertainty here in exactly how this is all going to evolve. And the reason why I'm concerned is because there's a couple of factors here that I think that the models are having a difficult time handling. It's a very complicated forecast, and one in which, well, let's just say I've seen this game before. Seen it 2 years ago, and I'm going to be very wary of where it all heads up. So here's the latest national radar. Now, I'm using the national radar to kind of make a point here. First of all, we have a disturbance moving through with a few scattered snow showers, no big deal. We have moisture streaming off here over the coastal waters of New Jersey. We have moisture streaming over here down in the Gulf of Mexico. Where is all this moisture coming from? The subtropical jet stream. That is a factor that I think is being underplayed here by the model guidance. Here's our disturbance that is starting to interact with the polar and Arctic jet stream. And the combination of these factors will lead to an area low pressure over the Mississippi River Valley, another one over the Gulf Coast. These two will phase off the mid-Atlantic coast and then move to the east-northeast. That's basically the idea with light snow expected. Now, this is our infrared satellite picture. You can see we have all sorts of boundaries here to deal with. Here's our boundary between the modified polar and tropical air. That's going to start to lift north. We can see that lifting starting to take place here along the Gulf Coast. We have a new polar and old polar air mass separation. And then here's our Arctic air mass. So you can see we have a lot of cold air at play here. And if you haven't realized yet, it is pretty cold out there. So we definitely have plenty of cold temperatures, cold air to work with. Now the question is whether we get moisture into that cold air. What I want to show you is the water vapor satellite picture. Here is our subtropical jet stream. This is a very moisture-loaded subtropical jet stream. I think you all would agree with that, with a connection down into the tropical Pacific. Here's our one disturbance, and then we have another disturbance way up here that we have to watch. Now, the difference between yesterday's 12Z and today's 0Z is a question of phasing. It just comes simply as that. When does this storm blow up? That's the bottom line question. The model guidance from 0Z, which is last night, all pushes the bombing out phase about 6 hours later when it's out in the Atlantic. So therefore, we don't get the heavy mammoth snow that the 12Z European model guidance was showing. So here is the model guidance. For today, high pressure and control, no big deal, a few scattered snow showers, and it's cold out. Tomorrow, it's even colder. Temperatures struggling in the mid to upper 20s over many locations, lower 30s along the coast. I think we all can agree we have plenty of cold air at play. Now, here we are on Thursday night. Here is a very important factor. We're watching this disturbance here. We know that we have a 50 north, 50 west upper level low here. That slows down the weather pattern. And here's our strong disturbance driving out of the Gulf of Mexico. Clearly, everyone's going to be cold enough for snow. The question is whether this low pressure system blows up here or blows up out here in the Atlantic. And that's pretty much the entire forecast here. Otherwise, we're dealing with a light to moderate snow event with very cold temperatures leading to a higher snow ratio. So instead of 10 to 1, it's 15 to 1 or 20 to 1, which would enhance snowfall totals just on its own. So we have this factor all to deal with. Now, I want to show you the ensemble European model guidance for the same time period. And here's one of my concerns. On the ensemble model guidance, the trough is a little bit more negative compared to the operational, and that will make a big difference because what that would do is allow the low pressure system to develop a little bit closer to the coast, which could drive in that heavier precipitation along the coastal plain than what's currently being forecasted. So that's pretty much what we're watching now. We know the storm's going to happen. We know cold air's in place. We know almost everyone's going to see snow out of this. All snow, possibly Cape May mix in with a little bit of sleet at times. But I think everyone else is all snow. And so, therefore, the way I forecasted this whole setup is kind of follow what the HPC is doing, which is basically painting about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of liquid precipitation over the region. So you take that and you basically multiply by 20 to 1 if you're over the interior, 10 to 15 to 1 over the New York City metropolitan area, and 10 to 12 to 1 over the Philadelphia metropolitan area. And that's pretty much how I got this snowfall forecast. In these locations over the interior, it's going to be much colder with temperatures on Thursday night and Friday falling into the teens. You're looking at about a half inch of QPF or liquid precipitation. So 20 times 0.5 is about 10. If you get a little bit more precipitation, you could push up to 14 inches. In the New York City metropolitan area, again, we're falling into the 20s. So we're looking at a 10 to 15 ratio. Same amount of QPF or liquid precipitation is being expected. So you take 0.5, multiply it by 12, and you get about 6 inches. You get a little bit more, you get up to 9 inches. And of course, as you're heading towards the Philadelphia metro and southern New Jersey, looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow. Same type of scenario. As you're heading out towards Lancaster, look more towards 3 inches of snow, as the precipitation will not be as extensive. So look at more like around 0.25, but your snow ratio will be around 15 because your temperatures are so cold. So it's a little bit of a trickier forecast. And again, I'm a bit concerned by what's happening here at 500 millibars. We really have to watch this. We really have to watch that Arctic disturbance because that is what caused the 12Z model guidance to go crazy yesterday. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that moving forward. But this is the general reasoning for my forecast. Again, kind of going with the HPC here, suggesting precipitation amounts anywhere from a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. I don't see how you get 1 to 3 inches of snow out of this amount of QPF with temperatures in the 20s and 30s by the time we get to our steady snowfall. Now, one factor that we have to consider with this storm is if the interaction between these two disturbances cancels out the storm, like what the NAM model guidance is trying to show here, then what you could end up with is significantly less snow with a large area of dry air. It's a possibility. I really don't expect that, considering all the other global models have nothing like that, and considering the amount of moisture there is to work with. But it's a possibility. And again, it's a very complicated, very fluid, very volatile forecast that we're going to have to keep an eye on, as it always is the case with these phasing systems. Right now, I'm looking at a start time between 3 to 5 a.m. on Thursday, end time between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Friday, worst conditions between 1 p.m. Thursday through 3 a.m. Friday. Once this storm leaves, we're going to watch the pattern once again, as that storm, as you can see, bombing out over the northwestern Atlantic here, with that phase finally happening. We're going to end up very cold on Friday, obviously, temperatures struggling in the teens and 20s for highs, single digits for lows. It's going to be brutal out there. Then on Saturday, warm up just a little bit. Now we're going to have to watch out for this disturbance here in this surface low pressure system. Again, it's a question of phasing. On the latest model guidance, the phase happens a little bit sooner, and so as a result, you end up with this storm track right over the coastal plain. This is supported by the fact that the upper level low, around the Canadian Maritimes lifts up towards Greenland, leading to a storm track right along the coast. This is another system we have to watch very carefully. Don't jump to conclusions just yet. I'm looking at rain, snow for the most part over the region, with temperatures basically in the mid to upper 30s along the coast, lower to mid 30s over the interior. Again, don't let your guard down with this storm, because this storm is dependent on when, should I say, the polar vortex starts to phase with this subtropical disturbance, thus leading to a track over the land. However, if this phase happens a little bit later and this trough is going negative a little bit later, then this storm track is more over the coastal waters and then back towards Maine, which would be a very, very interesting storm track for the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. So as always, you have to have patience. There's a lot of games here, a lot of players on the field, so to speak. And when that happens, you don't always want to trust the models 100%. Leave a little wiggle room. And of course, stay with NY and JPA weather for the latest information and updates on this very tricky and potentially dangerous forecast scenario on Thursday and again on Sunday night. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com, nynjpa weather on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. As always, have a safe and happy new year, and please stay safe out there.